Thank you, Valeria. I have to make a confession. I will have a very difficult task here. Why? Because I have to present at the Black Sea Offshore Conference something about onshore. Secondly, because we are a new kid on the block here in Romania, so we are small and we have not necessarily very sexy stuff to tell yet. And certainly because I have to make up some time. Yeah? So you may ask yourself, who is Mazarine Energy? Mazarine Energy is a private Dutch oil and gas company that holds exploration acreage and producing assets both in Romania and Tunisia. It's a relatively young company. It was founded by ex-Shell managers. We have in our board also Mr. Jeroen van der Veer, who was the CEO and president, chairman of the board of Shell. And we are funded by the Carlyle Group. So in a way, we are a sister company to Black Sea Oil and Gas, but we are moving on a different path. Yeah. So Mazarine Energy at a glance, what are we? Where do we want to be? We want to be the most cost-effective private company for developed assets in Southeastern Europe. Yeah? And the focus here is on cost-effective. You know? So now you may ask yourself, how can this be done in a low oil price environment? And it can be done if you start applying here in this part of the world the techniques and the business model that is used in the States for very long years, and it's very successful there. The Texan oil model is perfectly applicable in countries like Romania. We focus on onshore, on low risk, mature assets. We are thinking that we are very good at redeveloping actually all these mature assets. And we're also believing that integration with other energy components like the generation of power can raise the revenue stream and the profitability of a business. So Mazarine Energy in Romania, we entered Romania exactly a year ago in 2016 through the transfer of mature assets from OMV Petrom to us. We're talking about 19 petroleum agreements. These are producing assets onshore Romania in the two major provinces of Muntenia and Moldova. We have now 265 staff on payroll, all within a year. We have 5 workover crews and rigs operating for us. And we also do have 2 gas-to-power units that are producing power from the associated gas. And this power we use our own for our own consumption as well as for selling it in the market. Yeah? This is a map showing roughly where our fields are, and you see there a list of the fields. I want to mention the fields in red are fields that are not producing at the moment. So you may ask yourself, why the hell have we taken over from a large operator fields that have no production? Yeah? And the reason is because we believe that there is still potential in it, and this can be shown as an example here in Romania that the old mature assets are still having a long life expectation ahead. Yeah? You also see that we have taken over in these fields 1,200 wells that were ever drilled. Out of these 1,200 wells, only 200 are producing. This for us is good news because it means you have sufficient well stock to work on and perform your projects for increasing production. As a business model, this is totally new in this part of the world. Yeah? This is what I meant with the Texan model, where you operate in a stripper well country with very low productivity per well, but where you can still make very good business. The integrated power business, as I mentioned, we are producing now around 34,000 megawatts per year. This is coming out of the 2 gas-to-power plants. We have also taken over a distribution network, so we're full blast into the energy business. It's a very, very small player, but we want to grow in this. And we are also supplying power to some of our neighbors in the area there. This is a map, a geological map of Romania, and I put this up and just also for the non-geologists. The more colors you see there, it's more complexity in the underground, yeah? And I want to show that in the onshore of Romania, the geological complexity is very large. And if you want to operate in this part of the world, you really need to understand your subsurface. And I think that subsurface understanding is the key to the success in Romania. The two lines you see there are some geological profiles that are shown in here, and this is just to give an example of the tectonic complexity in the area. So you have multiple compartments, blocks. The understanding and the imaging of this subsurface geology is very important if you want to be successful. Yeah. Now, here comes the part. In Romania, there is a lot of data missing. There have been more than 60,000 wells drilled in Romania over the last 150 years. Yeah? But still, data is missing. Yeah? And especially modern data, and you have to have a lot of guesses of how the subsurface actually really looks like. You know? But the application of new technology can really unlock the potential of this remaining hydrocarbons in Romania. And we shouldn't forget that officially, if you look at the numbers of proved and probable oil reserves in Romania, we're talking about 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent. Yeah? That's a large number, which is already proved and probable. Yeah, we're not talking here contingent resources yet to find and so on. This 1 billion barrels is waiting there to be exploited. And I think that it requires investment, it requires more players that are willing to go into such a domain. Yeah? And this is what we did in 1 year. We have taken all these fields and we have started to apply new technology, new understanding. We figured out that the fields that we have taken over, some of them are producing, the oldest producing field is from 1903. Yeah? So that's a very long time. And the last modeling exercise, understanding of the geology of this field, in some of the fields was done 1948. Yeah? And there was no reinterpretation of data since 1948. Yeah? So we started applying all this technology, building 3D models on the available data. We looked also at 2D seismic that is available, and the seismic tells us, hey, there is a lot of complexity, much more than we think. But again, with the right mindset, you look at this as an opportunity, because a lot of complexity tells you that there are certainly undrilled compartments, undrilled blocks, that if you are able to image this, you can drill very successful wells into this. However, you will need to have a better imaging, so 3D seismic is very, very important. And I would recommend to any operator in Romania to really go the 3D seismic route. Without 3D seismic, so you risk drilling wells that are completely unsuccessful. If you look at the production history in a field, you see also that, like the circle, the red circle in there shows that production back in time increased suddenly. And this was because in those days, many, many decades ago, there was experiments of improved oil recovery schemes, like, for example, water flooding. And the water flooding has been very successful in these fields in the past, and it was stopped some many years ago, simply because of lack of investment. Yeah? Now, I can tell you all these fields in Romania are very suitable for improved oil recovery, and we want to reintroduce such techniques into these fields to really boost the current recovery factor in these fields. Yeah? So we already started to acquire seismic in less than a year from entering Romania and taking over these fields. We are now in the process of shooting seismic over 2 out of the 19 fields. fields, and we plan to shoot seismic over at least 50% of our acreage. Another field, looking again at seismic interpretation, at creating new models, based on what is available. This is all available data, and this showed us that, for example, constructing new models in an existing field that is producing through many wells. Now all these black dots are existing producing wells. For many years, you still find areas with undrained oil. And I don't know if this is the pointer here. No. There we go. Yeah. Let me see. Can I find it? This one. So, for example, this area here that is completely undrilled was missed in the past. And these are not large areas. We're not talking large numbers, but the small stuff added up together makes up this 1 billion barrels of oil. And if you can run it economically, if you can drill cheap wells, and we want to drill very cheap wells, and I will tell you how. If you can do this, this becomes very, very economic. So what do we do actually differently? Because it's no rocket science. So first of all, as I said, subsurface is very important, and the subsurface driver is to run this multiple scenario-based 3D modeling exercise for all the fields. Because in this way you can understand what is the uncertainty in the field and where are exactly the opportunities. Secondly, acquire and interpret 3D seismic, but the focus here is that the seismic needs to be geared towards reservoir scale. So the small stuff, not in an exploration mindset. It needs to have sufficient detail to really go for the nitty-gritty details inside the reservoir. We identify undrilled blocks, and next year we're going to start drilling our first wells. We have on the schedule already 9 wells planned for next year, because we identified already 9 different blocks to be drilled. And improving oil recovery. In every mature field, the oil recovery improvement factor through techniques like water flooding is a very major element. These fields, the average recovery factor currently, after so many decades of production, is still below 20%. In other parts of the world, the current recovery factor is about 30 to 40%. So there is a lot of room to go. And if you add up the barrels, I can tell you that's a lot. In terms of the operations, that's also important, how you operate this field. You need to be cost conscious. You need to be extremely pragmatic, no overheads. We're talking here really low oil price environment, robustness of this project, and that's very very important. And there are lots of measures that can be done, like for example reduce the trucking. In these fields, these are remote fields, there are no pipelines, you need to truck all your oil, and this is a major cost element that needs to be addressed, and it can be done. In terms of contracting and procurement, our experience everywhere we are operating is that the use of local contractors helps you really in getting a grip on the costs. And this is what we plan to do in Romania as well. This is basically the very, very first result of our exercise, our experience of 1 year being in Romania. By looking at all these fields, in blue you see there what we thought 2 years ago is the size of these fields, based on our initial evaluation. After crunching really the numbers, after working with all our subsurface experts through all the data available in these fields, we demonstrated that actually our understanding was wrong, and actually the fields are slightly bigger. Not by much, but you know, as I mentioned, the small amount added up counts. Yeah? So when I looked at these numbers, I said, yeah, what about the 1 billion barrels? Yeah? If the 1 billion barrel is also a low estimate, and it's actually higher by 29%, there is a lot of value remaining in this country. And I think that through policies that are really bringing in competition into the market, smaller players like us, that go really for these small fields, which is plenty of them in Romania, can really add a benefit to this country. Thank you very much.